Howdy folks and welcome. I hope this finds you well. Today we'll be exploring Clear Sky, the second game in the STALKER franchise, and the prequel to Shadow of Chernobyl. I have to admit, I never played Clear Sky back in the day. I don't remember the reasonings behind that, and the only perception I had of the game is through other people's comments. Oh boy, some people did not enjoy the game. However, if you've watched some of my other content, you might get the gist that I'm a cup half full kind of person. It takes a lot for a game to get on my nerves. So I was interested to see how quote-unquote bad Clear Sky was going to be, since Reddit users and articles seem to denigrate the title. Quickly, I think hate is a very strong word to use when reviewing something like a video game. Bad is okay, but Clear Sky, at least for myself, evokes more questions than good times. One of those questions is, why did they change so many things from Shadow of Chernobyl?
Bullshit.
For example, I couldn't help but rave about SOC's shooting mechanics in the first retrospective, especially after getting the VSS. Weapon handling and weight in Clear Sky are completely different and gave me the feeling like I was shooting a water gun that had holes in its barrel. Most upgraded weapons using the new mechanic did not change spray patterns, and if a player did rely on this method, the progression was so back and forth compared to the first game that I wouldn't be angry at someone for putting it down halfway through. One of the most notable instances of this was the Lemansk Bridge, where you have to kill a bandit sniper that appears on the hill, before he can shoot the mercenary lowering the bridge. Simple, right? I swear to the Stalker gods, I was there for what felt like 30 minutes. I had a VSS and a Dragunov, yet still couldn't reliably hit the sniper. I had no choice, either go all the way south during what should have been an intense firefight to scrounge for money to upgrade my new weapons, or try my luck. I chose the latter. But Clear Sky isn't all bad, boasting some of the most incredible lighting and weather effects for the time, and having some great set pieces apart from that damn bridge. That's what I want to explore in today's retrospective. The good, the bad, and all the questions in Clear Sky. If you have not watched my retrospective on the first game, Shadow of Chernobyl, I will highly recommend doing so now, since we'll be spoiling the story today, and it has more meaning if you played the first game. So, we start out with the cinematic like SOC, and honestly, I'm a fan. Love to see ecologists out in their natural habitat. Plus, this yet-to-be-named character has a VSS, so I know he's a badass.
In actual fact, we have nothing to worry about. According to our research, the next emission will not occur for at least 2 months, 4 days, and 7 hours. Its intensity will be 3 on the Bergman scale, which is 2.13.
Seeing mutants running is never a good sign. Exactly. Wow, these graphics are nice. We wake up to hear the tail end of a conversation talking about an emission and the fact that our character miraculously survived it. Now, this wasn't like SOC's emission where the Marked One and the ecologist survive. This was something much bigger. We meet Lebedev, who explains that his faction, Clear Sky, found the player character after a gigantic emission and took him back to their base in the Great Swamps. One of the best implementations of storytelling in the STALKER franchise is being able to talk to almost anyone from the factions you have access to. I always get excited by player choice when it comes to exploring the deeper parts of game stories. It's probably why I hoard audio logs from any game that has them. Immediately, we can have this interesting dialogue about the zone itself with whom I'm assuming is one of the doctors of this faction, Professor Beanpolev. Sorry for the pronunciation. The professor explains to us that the zone was persistent for many years, allowing Clear Sky to conduct research with an almost test group-like condition. Something has changed, and now the zone is, as the professor puts it,
The system became unstable, distorted, a glitch of sorts. The zone is spewing out emission after emission and pumping itself full of energy with each one, so much so that the readings on my sensors oscillate with unbelievable speed. And unless we find a way of reversing this trend, the result will be a disaster of far greater proportions than the 1986 catastrophe. The most important lesson in all this is that this glitch is not a product of natural causes. This is human handiwork.
Even worse than 1986. The professor also alludes to the zone's reaction being that of human handiwork, which will lead us into the main narrative, but for now, we start off a little smaller. Talking to Lebedev again has us questioning a lot of things. Why the zone is causing these frequent emissions, how to deal with the changing anomalies after each emission, and how to defend the newly opened swamp. A radio call interrupts our conversation, and we have to go through a tutorial. This tutorial itself is a snippet of what you'll encounter in terms of pacing throughout this game. Remember how SOC started? You immediately had the choice to go up north, say screw the quests, and probably die to the military at the derailed train. It was awesome. It makes me question who thought this stutter step of a beginning was a good idea. I'm all for lore dumps and prequels as sequels, but after just finishing SOC, this was not helping Clear Sky's cause.
Snipers, an emission is approaching. Get to cover now!
Another emission occurs and we're back in bed. Talking to Lebedev, who I guess feels a little bit more inclined to give us information the second time we should have been dead, he reveals what the emissions are and their effect on our body. It is not good.
You know, Bien Polev was right. You defy scientific explanation. He believes that you acquired some, let's say, unusual abilities, which help you survive anomalous activity that would literally tear anyone else down to atoms.
Lebedev explains that the zone has a seemingly robust immune system that is reacting to something. He also is the second person to reference the Scorcher, a place that we visit in SOC. But would S.T.A.L.K.E.R, our player character, know about it? Was it common knowledge that the Scorcher was past the barrier? Anyways, he also makes it seem like the center of the zone should never be ventured into, likening it to a taboo. He also has a line about not being able to share everything with S.T.A.L.K.E.R, even though he admits to being at the CNPP pre-2006. He also mentions that we just have to trust him, and if you've watched my faction video, I lambast him for this. Anyways, Clear Sky's main goal is, I guess, to stop people from screwing with the zone, in a good sense. I find it interesting that Monolith and them have similar goals, especially with finishing the conversation with Lebedev, who gives us our main quest. We're tasked with finding the son of a gun who's been going into the center of the zone and causing all these emissions. I know this is a lot of exposition on my end and on the games as well, which was not the case for SOC. It's hard not to compare the two, especially having played them back to back. Yet, I'll try my hardest to constructively compare the two games, not just rail on Clear Sky, so let's get into it.
I knew you'd ask that. The answer is simple. If the emissions aren't stopped, your nervous system will burn out and you'll die. Help us and you'll save yourself. Now this may sound like a line from a corny movie, but you really don't have a choice.
Clear Sky tried to be unique, adding certain systems like faction wars and upgrading weapons. Because this is a main story retrospective, I didn't really invest any time into this mechanic, and it seemed like I didn't need to either, despite a whole voice tutorial. The first hour of the game had me going back and forth between renegade camps, this game's version of the more lawless bandit tribe. I didn't find this terrible because exploring the Great Swamps always was interesting. What I didn't like is that S.T.A.L.K.E.R's stamina is like zilch, and you're not getting that many energy drinks. Anyways, with S.T.A.L.K.E.R's help, Clear Sky retains power of the swamps, and we're told to go to Corden, a familiar place if you played the first game. It's one of the stronger elements of the series, seeing the changing of the zone through each telling. Obviously, Call of Pripyat has the least crossover, but being back in Corden gave me a nostalgic feeling. We do have to run past this machine gun, which, good gosh, I'm so glad it wasn't an SOC. Sidorovich radios us in, and we meet the infamous traitor. We ask him if he knows a stalker who's been looking for specific rare components. Obviously, it's Sidorovich, who won't do anything for free. He informs us of a botched agreement between free stalkers and the military that's regressed to the stalkers holding one of their commanders captive. So we have to broker a deal between the two factions and get the loot back for Sidorovich. We're just a random merc, sure.
The order needs to be completed. So, help me get the case with the loot, and I'll tell you all about your stalker and his components. Deal?
Heading to the farmstead, we meet with one of the stalker leaders, and I should put leader in quotes, because not all stalkers listen to this guy. Father Valerian tells us that one of the military commanders was playing both sides of the deal, allowing for the loot to be passed through the checkpoint, but also alerting bandits to the whereabouts of the free stalkers. Obviously, Valerian is peeved about this, but also admits they might have been a little carried away. We play hostage negotiator, and the commander caves quickly. Grabbing the loot, we make our way back to Sidorovich, who tells us about a stalker named Fang. Fang has been looking for tube amplifiers and other specific electronics. Sidorovich also tells us that he didn't have everything that Fang needed, so he sent him north to garbage. And that's our next destination. We mosey on up to one of the garbage dumps and find a couple of dead bodies with a handy voice PDA, which says that Fang stormed off, and they sent one of their silver-tongued group to track him down.
I gave Fang the component we found in the cache. He wouldn't stop swearing and said he wouldn't pay us until we found the other components. We discussed it between ourselves and decided to send Vasya to speak to him. Vasya is one silver-tongued son of a gun. We figured he might be able to talk Fang into paying us at least some of the money. I just hope he doesn't run into trouble on the way there.
The breadcrumbs are forming, but it also feels like the setup is becoming linear. I know they do this in SOC, but it just felt different in Clear Sky. Do this to do that to find this guy. Oh wait, we just missed him? And this will just continue for the whole game. We do find the group's friend Vaisan, who, after we defend a rock against blind dogs, tells us that the stalker Fang had disappeared into the Dark Valley, and we have to track him from there. See what I mean about breadcrumbs?
Picture this. I'm on my way west, trying to catch up with this stalker, minding my own business and all, and these eyeless beasts come out of nowhere. I emptied 3 clips into the damn things, but they just kept on coming and chased me all the way to here. There's no way I'll catch that stalker now. He's got to be in the Dark Valley at this point.
Oh wow, so I liked entering the Dark Valley. It's completely different from when you do it in SOC. There is a freedom convoy ready and waiting for you when you start the level. They also tell you Fang is probably dead because mysterious attacks against freedom have been happening throughout the area. We meet with Lingov, who pulls a Sidorovich and tells us that he has a bit of information, but won't tell us until we do some jobs for him, that being hunting down a psi dog or a pseudo dog. After accepting, I did take some time to walk around the Freedom base, since in SOC it was infested with bandits. It made me question how this faction can be so unique. I mean, in SOC, Freedom seemed to be badass personnel that are equipped to the nines and defend the zone against the monolith forces like Cap on the Barrier and Army warehouses. Now, in Clear Sky, I'm talking to a character named Ganja, literally who partakes in the name and substance, but also has some wild lore if he is to be believed. Ganja talks about one stalker who told him of an encounter with a semi-transparent creature with an advanced protective suit, something no stalker would have. The transparent entity told him, "Leave, we are working, you are interrupting our work," which happened right next to radar. Even though Ganja says not to believe everything you hear, that semi-transparent character talking about how not to fuck up their experiments sounds very familiar. Yeah, I couldn't help but think that was sea consciousness. Who else would be projecting their astral body, or however you call it? Anyways, we perform a couple of tasks for Lingov, who turns out to be a double agent or traitor, and leaves the Freedom base on our return. This is the catalyst for meeting the actual leader of Freedom in Clear Sky, Chekhov. I wonder if he has a gun. Okay, I'll see myself out. Chekhov is kind of heartbroken that his friend and commanding partner was a traitor, even stating they've known him for ages. Chekhov wants us to hunt down Lingov the traitor, but he does tell us more about Fang before we depart.
There was a stalker like that. Very interested in rare parts and the like. He must have known that we had the best team in the whole zone. I sold him the part he wanted, and why not? He paid well and didn't even haggle. What I don't know is what he wanted with it. These parts were only used in old army cryptographic machines. He left the base straight away, and nobody's seen him since.
Very interesting. Cryptography? We've seen this decoding before. Now, I love the ancient feeling they evoke with these Soviet parts, even though I guess it's only 14 years after the fall in the game timeline. It gives the zone a unique history and even makes the generated economy seem plausible, that being something around bartering and real money exchanges for this derelict technology. But Chekhov won't tell us where Fang ran off to until we bring Lingov, so we head out to the PDA's position. We get to the farmstead and encounter real mercenaries. Sorry, Scar, you don't have the cool armor. A bit sad, but we hear from a mercenaries PDA that they just kill Lingov once he arrives, so there's no chance to bring him to justice.
Our poor little commandant sure didn't get far. His new friends found a nice spot for him, on a tree. Alright, grab that asshole's PDA and get right back to me.
We head back to Chekhov with Lingov's PDA, which, to nobody's surprise, the mercenaries are responsible for the mysterious attacks on Freedom. Unfortunately, the Freedom Boys still don't know why they are attacking them. If you watch my lore video on the Stalker factions, we know that the mercs will do anything for the highest bidder, so someone is paying them the big bucks for such an operation. Chekhov also tells us that they had someone hack Fang's PDA to track him, and gives us the coordinates. Okay, I guess, but we can also help Freedom deal with the attacks, and Chekhov sends us to one of the places that he believes the mercs were using, a familiar factory. After clearing out the mercenaries from above Lab X-18, the mercenaries decide to blow up the tunnel entrance they've been using, and we declare victory for Freedom. Whoopee!
Base, Freedom is by the tunnel.
Mission failed. Through the tunnel.
Even after quote-unquote saving Freedom, I still can't join them, which I was kind of confused about. Like, I didn't do enough for you, Chekhov? I guess with a name like that, you have to have your superstitions. Anyways, we follow our PDA tracking breadcrumb back to garbage, and then this happens.
This place is pretty damn good. Look at all these stalkers charging in here like flies to honey. I wonder what they're after.
It's too bad that punk got away.
Screw him. He dropped his shit. That's all that matters.
Yeah, let's grab the best stuff and get the hell out of here.
You still with us, Mark? Good, good. Fang's PDA is right next to you somewhere. Find it.
Well, Fang, the situation has changed. Someone knows we reached the center of the zone and they're looking for us. We've got to move, and fast. You'll find a detailed plan of action in our stash. I changed the code.
I enjoyed this part, especially having all my items that I compiled for the last hours being taken away, and given a shitty pistol. Yeah, that's great. We do get this piece of information about Fang knowing we are after them, or multiple people, since the bandits also allude to multiple stalkers getting trapped here. So, Lebedev has a mental breakdown because this confirms that stalkers have not only accessed the interior of the zone, but they can do it with impunity, somehow surviving the missions that have ripped the zone anew. I guess I would be pretty pissed too if I was a scientist trying to understand anything about the zone, and then it having it completely rearranged. Plus, as Lebedev has said previously, he's been in the zone for a long time. A long time. Okay, so we get our weapons back, and fuck these two guys. Our next stop is Agroprom, which happens to be occupied by Duty. Again, the zone is not static, which I think brings a more dynamic feeling to the universe. Another feeling I get when playing Clear Sky is how screwed most of these factions are. Obviously, Freedom and Duty stick around for the foreseeable future, yet they get pummeled by the zone in every direction. Freedom having to deal with bandits and mercenaries, and Duty apparently has a mutant problem. God, I love these aesthetics of Agroprom. We meet up with General Krylov, who informs us that the tunnels below are infested with mutants galore. Yeah, no kidding. And they've been countering Duty's efforts by attacking them at night or sneak attacking them from the tunnels themselves. Krylov believes this is because of the research that they discovered when first coming to the Research Institute. Krylov explains that the Soviets had been conducting experiments of mind control, but that this specific type was for animals, and we'll get to the different brain experimentations later on as well. Having played the first game, I think this is definitely a nod to the player about how C consciousness uses the zone's defenses to their advantage. Or could we be on course for some Cthulhu level entity in the noosphere? Well, I can't wait to find out November 20th. We kill some Snorks and enter the tunnels from the mutant den. Again, this is brilliant storytelling and world building. I did not joke when I said I memorized the way out of Agroprom in SOC, so I didn't have to freak out so much about the bloodsuckers or controller at the end. Going into the same place but from a different entry point had me on edge. I had no idea what was coming up, and I hadn't talked about the gun so far, but oh boy, did I feel weak compared to when I stepped foot into the tunnels in Shadow of Chernobyl. But why are we even in these tunnels? Well, it's another I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Duty have the bright idea to flood the tunnels, thus killing off the large mutant population, and we still need to find Fang. Also, look at these interior designs. This is another aspect I absolutely adore from these games, and we'll see it more in Call of Pripyat, trying to get to the aforementioned city through the underground. Something about derelict Soviet tunnels and crazy contraptions just gets to me, and if you didn't notice, I freak out a little bit, thinking I needed some psi protection. And I guess I did need it, since the controller does spawn in this room. I don't know if they made the controllers beefier or my guns needed a desperate upgrade, but this guy took so many shots. We turn the valve and get this notification. I absolutely freaked out seeing the stairs descend instead of ascending, and watching the rats run away was a great addition, even though I was going to follow them and this damn gate got in the way. My thought was Scar didn't seem to care about the animals in the opening cinematic running away, so maybe this time it would lead me to safety. Anyways, we run past the ratties and quickly get up the ladder to safety. Honestly, I was a little sad there wasn't more to this. We do, however, end up in another familiar place. Don't make this a drinking game. Ah, the old stomping grounds.
Guys, this is STALKER. I didn't expect Doc to fix me up so fast. I heard rumors that someone has learned of our success and is seeking to contact us. I have a bad feeling about this. I fear we may need to hurry up with our next visit to the center.
Hey, STALKER, good to see you alive. Fang and I found all the parts we needed and put together 2 decoders. We left them both in a stash near the Scorcher. We'll pick them up when we head for the center.
Ghost, that's great news. Our plan is as follows. We can't make it through the underground, so our only option is to go past the Scorcher. I'm on my way to Sakharov to pick up a device that will help us get through the Scorcher in one piece. Wait for me at the military warehouses.
Holy bananas, Batman. It's kind of wild to hear Strelok's voice and point of view before turning into an amnesia patient. It's kind of startling since he doesn't seem to care about what happens outside of the zone or to the people that inhabit it. Think about it, they must know that the zone tries to defend itself. Even more so, the last emission killed a ton of people and changed up anomaly placements, certainly killing much more. I get that it's a world for the toughest people, but Strelok at first seems to be more of an asshole loner, seeking riches or something else in the center of the zone. We also get to hear Ghost's voice for a second, and if you remember, he is the one that goes into Lab X-16 and is killed by the controller. Also, another topic that confirms my suspicions about the ecologist Professor Sakharov is that Strelok name drops him and confirms that he got the psi protection device from him. Plus, Sakharov knows about the brain scorcher in addition to Lab X-16. What else does he know about? So, with all this information, Lebedev is convinced that the next emission will be the ultimate one, an end for our character. This is all predicated on if Strelok's group successfully gets back into the interior, so we gotta book it to save ourselves and the zone. we happen to cross paths with none other than the professor himself, Sakharov, who tells us a little bit about Strelok. Apparently Strelok is somewhere in the abandoned factory, and Sakharov tells us that the psi field fluctuates within the area, so stalkers try to explore it only to get their minds melted. And there's a lot of them that get their minds melted. After finding some documents off of a murdered research team, Sakharov concludes that there is this thing, a man-made machine, under the factory causing psi fluctuations because of a faulty cooling system. Obviously, this is meant for people that have finished SOC, since I don't know if we get that much information about the machine itself from this game. Anyways, we meet up with Lefty and his group and try to infiltrate the factory in order to turn on the cooling system. I enjoyed everything this quest was except for zombies taking an ungodly amount of damage. I understand they're zombies, but good god, SOC had bullet damage perfected, why would they change it? After taking down what feels like buff zombies for 10 minutes, we're tasked with guarding the men turning on the cooling valves. I didn't realize this until writing the script, but they did this last stand moment in the game and on the Limansk bridge. I have this feeling it was like a late 2000s video game thing, but I can't remember specifically which first-person shooters utilized this trope too much. This last stand was visually striking, yet the gameplay was lacking. I guess this is a good time to talk about the guns. Firstly, I understand there is an upgrading system. I've talked with multiple people about this, and even with upgrades, weapon spread is horrendous. Plus, without the proper bullets, which are hard to find, it's not just the zombies who can tank bullets. It also doesn't help that your gun jams all the time past a certain point of degradation. So not only are you missing tons of shots, your gun is also jamming throughout that. It didn't make for a smooth experience like an SOC. We finally managed to cool down the system, and Sakharov informs us that Strelok's PDA signal has resurfaced in the Red Forest. Yippee! So I was not expecting to be sprinting after Strelok, like literally it's him running from us, and I was certainly not expecting this. At this point, I had dug my own grave with not wanting to go back and forth for weapon upgrades or buying ammo, so I went into my gamma phase and became a scavenger. If you notice in the gameplay me running to bodies just to loot ammo and weapons, that is why. So, all these loners attack us and are making sure Strelok escapes through the tunnel. Once we take out the ambush, somehow Strelok communicates with us to rub it in our face that we couldn't get him and that he'll reach the center of the zone.
I blew up the tunnel. You will not stop me. I am going to reach the center of the zone, whatever it takes.
Strelok's signal is gone. We lost him.
Strelok just seems like an asshole. Maybe getting amnesia was a good thing for him. So Lebedev tells us that Strelok is going to the Brain Scorcher, and after that it's just a short shot to the center of the zone. Obviously, we would get our minds fried if we stepped a foot closer north, so we'll have to make a detour through Limansk. Sadly, the only way to Limansk is currently blocked by bandits, who somehow made their way onto the other bank. They control the bridge, which can only be lowered on the other side. We're faced with a dilemma. However, Lebedev does tell us about Forrester, some type of guide that might know a way to Limansk. We also find this loner that I guess was part of the ambush but hid. You can get this guy to agree to take you to Forrester, but I think he tries to double cross you, yet it glitched since I was friendly with loners. Did anyone else experience this?
That's him! Take him down!
If you got something to say it.
Going through the Red Forest is horrifying, and I'm glad I wasn't there during the nighttime, especially for the next part. This guy takes so many bullets, it took me about 3 tries to get him, all of which my armor got destroyed. We find the teleporting anomaly and come across a group of duty outside Forrester's apartment, or domain. I don't know what to call this. But I do know that the graphics in Clear Sky have held up so well. I mean, come on. This is atmosphere up the wazoo and a clear upgrade from SOC. We talk with Forrester, who has special powers like us. S.T.A.L.K.E.R can survive emissions, and Forrester claims that the zone helps him traverse its area, even to the point of saving him, or so Forrester believes. Forrester also echoes what Lebedev said at the beginning of the game, that being S.T.A.L.K.E.R is somehow special, and that the zone, even with all the crazy anomalies and mutants, was stable before the events taking place recently. Forrester also surmises that because the bridge was raised by Freedom or Duty after the mission that took S.T.A.L.K.E.R out, but there are bandits on the other side, there must be another way to it. Forrester also gives a lot of lore about the town of Lemansk and makes me question why Lebedev knows so much about the town, or at least the route to it. Forrester goes on about how Lemansk never existed on the map, making people believe it wasn't real, but he saw it. He goes on to talk about how Lemansk was a research institute, with houses built specifically for scientists and their servants. The institute was named Radio Wave, and when we get into Lemansk, you'll see all the radio towers strewn around the abandoned city. So, if it was abandoned or it was kept secretive, why does Lebedev know about it? And we'll figure that out soon. Also, you can see the similarity between these radio towers that the Soviet scientists used for their experiments and the towers that Monolith use or construct during each game. The last bit of interesting lore Forrester gives us on Lemansk is that he claims that the city was not evacuated during the Chernobyl incident. Whether that was due to the secretive nature of the city itself or the typical Soviet malfeasance, it sets up the city perfectly with history and mystery. So previously Lemansk was a death trap, but because of STALKER's first incursion into the zone and the subsequent emissions it caused, the town is now open for business and is a safer way north past the Brain Scorcher. Lucky us. Our next destination is the army warehouses, where we're informed that a group of mercenaries has vanished. Talking to one of their superiors, we're told that the group of mercs had been looking for a special artifact, and indeed found it. Unfortunately, that was just when the emission hit, and afterwards there has been no direct contact, just faint radio transmissions. So we set off to see if we can figure out where these mercs ended up, and maybe figure out how to teleport our way into Lemansk. At least that's what I thought. We do our due diligence and end up figuring out that the merc squad is stuck in a time loop or a time bubble. Our boy Forrester coincidentally has been in a time bubble recently and tells us that an artifact called the Compass, which would be able to locate and save the mercenary squad, is a thing. But wouldn't you know, bandits took it from him and we had to get it back. After our successful operation, we head back to the merc leader and tell them we have the ability to save their friends, but we need to find an antenna strong enough for them to receive the coordinates for an exit. I like this part because it shows the tentative alliances the factions try to maintain. Not all the military was wiped out during the last major mission, and the only antenna strong enough to broadcast the exit coordinates is in the military base. The merc leader actually declines to engage with the military despite needing to complete this mission. Instead, he calls in someone from Freedom who are already planning on taking over the warehouses, which is cool because you're seeing how Freedom gets established around the warehouses and the barrier. This was a hard fight, and there were a lot more military personnel than I expected. Also, I love that you could just shoot open this locked cabinet, even if there wasn't anything there. After defeating the military, we transmit the coordinates and bam, we freed the mercs who happen to appear on the other side of the bridge. Lebedev immediately after tells us that we're needed back at the bridge ASAP, and so starts one of the most annoying portions of gaming I've experienced in a while. If you've watched my Brothers in Arms video, this is on par with buying the farm level. I could not believe how bad the SVD is, and the bullet drop from the VSS long range is atrocious. And again, I understand upgrading weapons, that still has less of an effect than you would think. The whole entire shtick is the merc squad we just saved from the bubble can lower the bridge, if, and that is a big if, they get cover from us. The first 30 minutes I tried to do what any person would, kill the bandits thinking it was just useful. No, you're just wasting bullets, especially the SVD specific ammo. What you should do, and what I figured out way too late into my frustration, is that the other bandits do not matter. They do not stop Leshy from lowering the bridge, only the sniper bandit does, so just camp the sniper and eventually the bridge comes down. Eventually. I know we're pretty late into the video and I don't want to spend more time on things I didn't enjoy, but wow, fuck this bridge. We thank the Merc boys and Lebedev sends in the Clear Sky troops.
If it weren't for him, we'd be stuck in that bubble trap forever.
Either way, I owe you.
I'll keep that in mind.
We have completed a brilliant operation.
So,
the bridge
what
has
is it
been
that you
lowered,
need?
and the road to Limansk is now open. Advance squad, move out into Limansk and find a safe path to the city. Everyone else, hold the bridge and wait for the main squad.
Speak of the devil. I was just thinking of you. Start talking, buddy.
Stay in touch. We may need your help soon.
Limansk starts exactly how I would picture the creepy town, with a side of Soviet experiments. We run into this bandit that's friend is dying. You can choose whether to help him or not, and I decided to help him since I saw a video on the subreddit about him blowing himself up. Now, I don't know if that actually happens if you don't help him, but I wasn't going to take any chances. The bandit cues us in on an ambush ahead, and we enter the end game. I adore Limansk's layout. I know I sound like a broken record by now, yet these areas that the developers have managed to create evoke real emotions. You not only have these close quarter firefights throughout the streets, but you also get these arenas that are quite large. Plus the ambient music is haunting. The city itself gets lots of angles to use against bandits and our new enemy, Monolith soldiers. Yeah, this is the first time you'll be facing Monolith, and they do not mess around. The Clear Sky squad and S.T.A.L.K.E.R kind of get surrounded while they move deeper into the city, and that fear of Monolith death squads narrowing on your position, plus the aesthetics, makes this one of my favorite levels in gaming. Crossing the bridge to Administrative Building is one of those moments I'll never forget, using crates as cover and advancing when I had the chance. After clearing out Monolith squads from the building, we come up on one of the coolest anomalies in the game. I don't know what it's called, but you can see what anomalies can do to space-time, as we also witnessed from the previous mission. We walk up to this narrow staircase, and I'm getting Half-Life 2 vibes for some reason watching the footage. The construction site was one of the harder fights in the franchise as well. Whether that was grenades coming at you from all sides, the Monolith soldiers spawning in, or Monolith soldiers instantly spawning in throwing grenades. You pick. Side note, a lot of people complain about the grenade usage from AI in this game, and I didn't really experience that. I know I just said what I said, but this is one of the only times where it felt like it was a grenade spam rather than just necessary usage. Anyways, we fight this John Wick battle around and within the construction site, killing countless enemies. Somehow the Clear Sky guys just went around the construction site? Okay. Wow, those towers look familiar. We fight a Monolith sniper in a Saving Private Ryan scenario, and then you discover that the Monolith guys set up a trap. You gotta test out the waters at least once. Anyways, I think the Half-Life 2 vibe is from the Eastern European town and then platforming on the rooftops to disable traps. There is a generator supplying energy to the water, but we quickly take it out. Damn, this ambient music reminds me of Silent Hill.
Great! The power to the vents has been cut. Advance! Good job. The main squad is ready to move through Limansk. Advance squad, your objective is to find the entrance to the Pripyat underground. The entrance is at the old hospital on the edge of Limansk. The coordinates are on your PDA.
Lebedev tells us that the next step is to find the abandoned hospital, which leads to the CNPP. Older games prove that if you nail ambiance and setting, graphics don't really matter. And oh boy, do they pull this off at the hospital. Not only is this making the player question how can a hospital be underground, but as soon as you enter it, you can feel the zone has corrupted it, or at least molded it with its churning tunnels and almost tomb-like surroundings. Things are not looking great as we get to the upper floor of the hospital. We find the first squad pinned down by an MG and sniper. Weirdly, we can't just shoot the sniper, you have to play it the way the game wants you to, and use the flanks to advance. This was a pretty hard fight as well, with the melancholy music in the background and no armor left. It felt heavy. Like, was I able to finish this fight? I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it was my experience, and I kind of liked it.
Great, that's the sniper down. The road is clear. We're moving out to try and blow up that pillbox.
After disposing of the MG and sniper, we advance to the next area, but by God, is that military music playing?
Base, this is 021. I see an enemy squad plus an unidentified stalker. Requesting orders. 021, take them all out.
Yeah, so I guess the military sent in a helicopter to see what the hell was going on near Lemansk and the CNPP. This was more of a cool visual, since taking out a military helicopter with a VSS is pretty remarkable, even for my standards. With the helicopter destroyed and our dominance asserted over the military, we've made it to the CNPP.
Glad to see you, man. We've done the impossible. We fought our way into the very center of the zone, to the power plant, and mostly thanks to you. Petrenko, get a scan of S.T.A.L.K.E.R PDA frequency.
Commander, Strelok is very close. Lebedev, this is the recon squad. We got a visual on Strelok. Merc, climb onto the heat pipeline and intercept Strelok. We'll cover you from the ground. Merc, here's an electromagnetic gun prototype. It will let you disable Strelok's side protection and help stop him. Without protection, Strelok won't last long under the emission. Even our own suits can barely neutralize the field. Get up close to Strelok and cut off his side protection.
So it took me a bit to realize what was happening here. Strelok, I guess, does the same thing twice, or maybe even 3 times by coming to the center of the zone. In SOC, he is teleporting around the CNPP to find C consciousness. This time around, I truly don't understand what he's looking for, other than the Wish Granter. But if it was the Wish Granter, wouldn't C consciousness just allow him to get there and then wipe his mind? What do you think? So, we get a cutscene of Strelok parkouring around, and we're tasked with taking down his psi resistance with a Gauss rifle that Lebedev somehow has? Okay, I know we're at the end, but what the hell is this? There's absolutely no setup to this being established, and feels so added last minute that I couldn't help but feel thrust out of the game, when Lemansk and the hospital were such enthralling parts. Plus, the whole point of weakening Strelok's psi protection is so that he will succumb to the eventual emission, but won't we as well? This is essentially a suicide mission. Lebedev claims that the suits they're wearing could protect them, but that feels off. If that were true, why not just go through the Brain Scorcher? And oh my god, the gameplay. Does this look fun? No recoil, no reaction, just hitting Strelok over and over again. We're also doing the same mechanic that the ending of SOC had, but this time the gunplay isn't as fun and these monolith soldiers tank hits, plus actually teleport in throwing grenades. I do not know how I survived this part. It took a long time of reloading, but in the end we got him. Well, holy moly, what the goodness gracious ending was that?
Side protection has been disabled. That ought to stop him. Now we just wait and see what happens. How are the readings? Any drop in the level of anomaly?
I now understand why people do not enjoy this game as much as SOC or COP, because that just felt like an abrupt ending. You're telling me that Lebedev went all this way from the Great Swamps to the CNPP and thought if he had just killed or maimed Strelok that the zone would just stop? We'll know more about Lebedev actually in the third game called Prequel, which makes this choice even more crazy to me. It's like his hunch that this would stop the zone's emissions but just gets fried by it? All those years of preparation, scientific experiments taken away, and for what? Then we have this cutscene which is ominous to say the least. Some cool things that we know is that S.T.A.L.K.E.R is back for STALKER 2, and that seemingly tells me that he had been part of Monolith since the beginning of SOC. We'll see what dark stuff he's done in the name of the voice. Anyways, I think there were moments in the game that will still stay with me all my gaming life, and certain areas like Lemansk, Red Forest, hell, even the Dark Valley shine in mystery and ambiance, giving the player spooks and thrills, or a nice way of saying a dynamic experience. But those moments come with the other side of the game, the atrocious gunplay compared to the first game, and the odd pacing that I felt through my 11 hours playing through the main story. I don't know if I would have enjoyed Clear Sky if I hadn't just played SOC and really got into the lore and narrative they were going for. Clear Sky is a prequel to the sequel, and as an avid lore fan, really gave depth to a lot of things unexplained or glossed over in the first game. This is a unique perspective playing S.T.A.L.K.E.R, and having access to a secretive group like Clear Sky, it was a great way to expand the zone's history and meaning. Characters you meet along the way give great insights on the zone's creepier aspects, and retracing certain areas from the first game like Agroprom was ingenious. I don't dislike this game, but I definitely got frustrated by the aspects that I've talked in length about in the video, and I fear my record is breaking down. So I'll end on this. I understand why people like this game. I understand why people don't like this game. I understand why I like Shadow of Chernobyl and Call of Prequel because I played Clear Sky, and I'm very excited to see where the developers go in the next installment. I also want to point out that I'm hoping it won't be like Gamma or Anomaly for STALKER 2. As much as I enjoyed those mods, playing through the original trilogy, you get a lot more direct storytelling, which is a good thing. Actually, just side note, IGN just released its final look at STALKER 2, and there seems to be a lot of storytelling and mixed storytelling. This is off script, sorry. But it looks like there's going to be multiple endings or multiple story points that the player will have influence over. Now, not everything has to be open world either, and I enjoyed the set pieces in Clear Sky the most, even with the atrocious shooting. And that's all, folks. Thanks for sticking around. I would love to know your thoughts on the game, what questions you had about the story, or anything franchise related. I can't wait to finish off this retrospective series with Call of Prequel, which should be coming out soon. And honestly, it's a pretty freaking awesome game, so I can't wait. And as always, see you next time.
To find true friends in freedom, only in our ranks can you always find someone willing to cover your back and share his